We start with the news of the day, which, of course, is Bo Davis leaving LSU, his alma mater, after one season, the defensive line coach, to become the defensive line coach of the New Orleans Saints. There are a lot of things that we don't know about this situation. We don't know how much Bo Davis is being paid by the Saints. We don't know what Bo Davis thinks about the transfer portal or name, image, and likeness. We don't know any of those things. We can speculate on them. We don't know. And so I'd like to start with some of the things that we absolutely know. And what we absolutely know is that LSU's defensive line coaching position has been an absolutely revolving door since 2020. We are now in 2025. Bill Johnson was the defensive line coach in 2019-2020 is when he retired. So that's one coach in 2020. Ed Orgeron replaced him with Andre Carter in 2021. That's the second coach. Then Ed Orgeron was fired, and Brian Kelly did not retain Andre Carter. He hired Jamar Cain. That's three coaches in 3 years. Jamar Cain left to go coach the Broncos. So he hired Jimmy Lindsey. That's four coaches. Jimmy Lindsey got sick. That's nobody's fault, but he got sick, left the program. So they promoted John Jancic. That's five coaches. John Jancic on the defensive front, it wasn't going very well, as you'll recall, in 2023. So they hired Pete Jenkins to come in. That's six coaches. And then they hired Bo Davis. That is seven defensive line coaches in 5 seasons. 7. And you thought when they hired Bo Davis, well, that's an LSU alum. That's a guy who they're going to pay very handsomely. They did it $1.25 million a year. That's a guy that they're going to keep around for a little bit. He's going to bring some stability to this LSU defensive line group. And trust me, LSU needs it in a bad, bad way. Because they haven't been very good on the defensive line, if you hadn't noticed. In 2024, 12th in the SEC in rushing defense. 2023, worse than that. They were 13th in a 14-team league. They haven't been in the top 7 in the SEC in rushing defense since 2019 when they won the championship. There was a time where LSU was churning defensive linemen into the NFL draft. Churning them. Got the numbers here, and you start to go through some of these names. You're like, yeah, LSU was a defensive line factory at one point. 2008, Glenn Dorsey, first round. 2009, Tyson Jackson, first round. Ricky Jean-Francois was drafted. Al Woods was a 4th-round pick. Drake Nevis went in the 3rd round, was a star at LSU. Pep Livingston also got drafted. Michael Brockers went in the 1st round. Kiki Mingo went in the 1st round. Benny Logan, a 3rd-round pick. Sam Montgomery, 3rd-round pick. LeVar Edwards went in the 5th round. Ego Ferguson was a 2nd-round pick. Daniil Hunter was the 3rd-round pick and become a star in the NFL. That's a stretch from 2008 to 2015 where LSU was an assembly line of defensive linemen into the NFL. That's 8 drafts, 13 linemen drafted, 4 in the 1st round in 8 drafts. Since then, in 2015, LSU has not put 1 defensive lineman in the 1st round. None. They have been average on the defensive line for years now. And you thought with Bo Davis coming in, with Bro and McKinley as young players that he could develop, that you were about to usher in an era of defensive line dominance at LSU. And there's reason to think that. Bo Davis has been a defensive line coach in college for 12 years. He's coached 17 all-conference players, 7 All-Americans. Won 2 national championships at Alabama, then went to Texas, Tavondre Stratton and Byron Murphy, All-Americans. Sweat won the Outland. That's his thing. He recruits them. He gets them into the system. He develops them. You have great players in college that go into the NFL. And you thought you had a guy who was home that was going to be here. And then he left. And so now you will hire your 8th defensive line coach in 6 seasons. That's almost inconceivable. And it's got to be a gut punch to this LSU program that probably felt like they had defensive line covered. So what do? Well, they've got some options. Kevin Peoples has coached defensive line all over the country. You're talking about a guy who's been a defensive line coach at 8 different spots. That includes Arkansas and Tulane. So he could do it, but he's coaching the edge guys, and he did a great job last year. You saw Braden Swinson come on. You saw Savion Jones come on. They played better last year, and you've got some young talent there. Gabe Relaford, Braden Swinson talked about him at the Combine today. Dylan Carpenter is a talent. You've brought in Jack Pyburn, Patrick Payton, brought in Jamari Butler from Nebraska. I don't think you want to split Kevin Peoples' duties. You want him to do what you brought him here to do, which is coach the edge players. You've got to go get someone to help you on the interior defensive line. And I know today that guys like Ahmad Bro and Dominic McKinley are bummed. T-Bob and Jake talked about it this morning. You lose your position coach, it's a tough thing. And I've heard Ahmad Bro talk about how much he thinks of Bo Davis. So that's a tough deal for those guys. But I think LSU's going to fill that spot. I got asked earlier today, well, they're going to be able to fill it before the spring? I think so. I think it's reasonable that Brian Kelly can fill that slot in 10 days. I don't think he found out about this whole thing today. That's probably something that he's known about for a few days. And I think that he's probably got some names in mind. It's undoubtedly he'll get a bunch of phone calls because you're paying a defensive line coach at LSU over $1 million. And that talks. But the fact of the matter is that you're not going to get someone, my guess is you're not going to get someone that is accomplished as Bo Davis. At Alabama, at Texas, what you think he could build at LSU, it's a big, big deal. And I don't know what it's going to mean in recruiting. He was a great recruiter. I don't know what it's going to mean in terms of development. I don't know what it's going to mean in terms of attrition. Keep in mind, there is a transfer portal window after spring football. I don't know if there are any guys that are going to explore that. But it's a gut punch for sure for LSU. So they're going to try to fill that spot, but I don't know if it's going to happen within the next 10 days. I'm fighting off a sneeze in the worst way right now. It is absolutely brutal.
Just go ahead and sneeze.
Well, I would if I could. I'd hit the cough button and we'd be fine, but I can't get it out. It's just like making my eyes water and my nose run. It's awesome radio, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But it's a gut punch for LSU. Now, why did Bo Davis do this is the question. And not that it matters a lot. It is what it is. It's over. But I wonder if this is not like Jeff Hafley. If you don't know who Jeff Hafley is, he was the head football coach at Boston College. He left to be the Packers defensive coordinator. You know Chip Kelly, head coach at UCLA, left, went to call plays at Ohio State. Jim Larinaga, Final Four coach at George Mason. In the middle of the season at Miami, I'm out. Nick Saban has talked about this. Jay Wright retired. It's a tough time to be a college coach. And that doesn't mean you cry a river for them. It doesn't mean they're not paid well. I get all that. But dealing with 18 and 19-year-olds who are demanding millions of dollars and oftentimes will not take a lot of tough coaching and may just leave because there's no penalty for that, can be difficult for coaches that grew up in the old school. And in the NFL, you don't have to deal with it. So I have no doubt that Bo Davis loves LSU. I have no doubt that Bo Davis felt like when he took this job that it could be his last gig. But there may be some things about this era that he just doesn't love. The other piece to it, which has nothing to do with that, is it's a chance to coach at the highest level. The NFL is the top of the food chain. And if Bo Davis doesn't believe that he's going to be a defensive coordinator or a head coach and that he's going to be a position coach for his career, this is the highest point you can get to be a defensive line coach in the NFL. I don't know what that paycheck's like, but in terms of the competition, this is it. So it's a huge bummer for LSU. It's a blow to Brian Kelly's staff for sure. I'm sure it's really tough on those defensive linemen who now don't have a position coach and don't know what their future holds. But it's Bo Davis doing what he thinks is best for him. And what's best for him is a big loss for LSU football. There's no doubt about that. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.